From the current Charleston mayoral race to the recent opening of the Lewis Warren Senior Center in West Ashley, I speak exclusively with Charleston City Council member and businessman Keith Waring for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And listen to this interview later on iHeartRadio. Dr. Keith Waring.
Oh, yeah, I will laugh. I have to laugh. Well, I tell you, it was a wonderful honor bestowed on me by the College of Charleston that I'll be humble about for the rest of my life, really.
That's huge.
It is huge when your community reaches up and recognizes you that way. But you wish you can share it with all the people, all the good people that you had a chance to work with. Because I'm gonna tell you, over the years, I've certainly learned a lot more from the people I've had the pleasure to work with than what little they had to learn from me, probably. But it's a wonderful honor. I treat it with respect.
Oh, yes. I know that obviously you've been on Charleston City Council for many years. How do you view the city of Charleston from a Charleston City Council standpoint now?
I thought it would be very interesting to be a part of how Mayor Rowley managed this city, and obviously watching the transition after a mayor who's been in the executive position for 40 years, transitioning or passing that baton, if you will, to another person. And obviously that's been Mayor Tecklenburg. So that's been a very big contrast to be a part of.
And, obviously there's so much going on within the city of Charleston, and particularly on City Council. And we were just talking about the Freeport Point 2 project.
Yeah, Freeboard Plus 2. It's an issue when it comes to building a new home, for example. If you build a new house, it's a complicated issue, and I think that's one reason more people aren't in City Hall voicing their concerns. FEMA has a guideline that says your house, to be out of the flood zone, needs to be at mean level 13.6. So that counts the height of your land and however high you built your home, right? Well, the city of Charleston, under Mayor Tecklenburg, is proposing going there plus 2 additional feet.
Yeah.
Well, we live in the low country. That's not a nickname. We really are low. A lot of homes in the Charleston area aren't even at the 13.6 height level. And a lot of those homes, in particular homes that in the established neighborhoods, when I mean established neighborhoods, that's been built 20, 30, 40 or more years ago, they're woefully below that FEMA level. Well, to make it 2 feet above FEMA level, virtually every house that's in a flood area will have to jack their house up. In other words, have a company that would come in, put iron beams under your house and lift it up, and then you have to get a brick mason to put, columns appear under your home. What the mayor is proposing and his team is proposing would affect every low to moderate neighborhood and probably most middle class people. This goes beyond race, but it will be particularly punitive on predominantly African American communities and brown communities, Latino communities. And the reason I say that is those homes tend to be assessed or appraised at a lower valuation than a house, let's say, on the Battery. Which means if your house were to catch a fire and it's sustained, I'll give you a couple examples. I represent Ardmore.
Yeah.
The majority of the homes in Ardmore are on grade, in other words, on a slab.
Right.
I've never seen a house on grade or on a slab with iron beams of it underneath it being jacked up at a higher level. Recently, I looked up a house in Ardmore, and it was assessed by the county for $89,000. The land was $19,000. Okay. So that meant the house was $60,000. So under this scenario, if that house would have sustained more than $30,000 worth of damage for a fire, for wind and hail damage, for a tornado, they're going to not only need the money to repair their home, which the homeowner's insurance would pay, but now the city's going to come along and say, if you don't lift your house up to a level, if this were to pass, of 15 and a half feet, you can't occupy your home. And you say, well, how much is the city going to appropriate to assist in you lifting the home to that elevation? We have no monies for that. And the mayor's response, and a lot of opinions in the newspaper that's been written, is that the federal government has a grant of $30,000. So hear me clearly. The city is going to require you to reach this, or to lift your home to this height. And if you don't have the money for it, they're going to say, go to Washington, D.C. and ask the people in Washington, D.C. to give you money to meet a requirement that not the federal government requires, our city government is requiring. Now that plays well in a campaign when your campaign probably is going to be based on flooding. But when you start dealing with whether a person can occupy or not occupy their home after a tragedy has struck, it's just wrong. So now that's moving through council. Today the first reading was approved under the mayor's guideline. The second reading was approved on an amendment that I gave that says, if you are an existing home and your home is damaged from any other peril, when I mean peril, lightning, fire, hail, wind, earthquake, and you sustain more than 50% damage, you don't have to meet the freeboard plus 2 or the 15 and a half foot requirement. Now, if it's damaged by flooding, then you're going to have to come in compliance like everybody else. That would mean you're in a really low-lying area. But when you ask the penetrative questions, who's going to pay for that, Mayor Tecklenburg, or his staff? The question is, I don't know. And we have a very good professional on our, we have a talented city council. We've got All-State agent Kevin Shealy, who knows that business like the back of his hand. Right. He clearly explained that that's an extra rider, if you will, or extra provision that most homeowners coverage don't have to be able to, if you had that damage, the requirement that they would pay the money, your insurer would pay you the money to pay for that lifting of the house. Most people don't have it. I've never really seen a city mandate be paid for with federal government dollars. Remember now, the federal government oversees us. Right. So now we have a requirement that says, Mr. Federal Government, I hear you on that 13 and a half feet, but we want to go 2 feet higher. And if a storm like Andrew went to home state Florida with high winds and did a lot of damage, in addition to these people's insurances paying to fix their house, we want you to assist in lifting the house. Or, again, as I said, if a tornado were to come along, another peril, 5, 6, 7 different perils. He's focused on flooding because it plays well in the campaign. But when you get to the point to where your city government won't issue a building permit because your home is in disrepair and you want to get your family back in that home, and they put on an additional financial requirement without any assistance. In case of a large catastrophe, like some of the storms that we've been very near misses on, if that had happened during Hugo, a lot of people wouldn't have been able to repair their homes and go back in. What would happen is you'd have displacement of communities. In other words, you can't fix your home, so you take whatever insurance money, sell your house as is, and then you move away, and then somebody else who can't afford to fix your house will come and lift the house up or tear the house down and then build a new house in the place. So communities would be displaced in the event of a major hurricane or major weather event. Or in some cases, something simple as an electrical fire that does a lot of damage to a home, and the city government is withholding the permit to make the necessary repairs.
I know you talked earlier about, I believe, $30,000 if they need to go to Washington for this.
Well, that's what the city is saying, that there's a grant out there, and there is a grant out there. Well, I have a very good family who, he happens to be a fireman.
Okay.
Okay, one of our first responders. He's and his wife and family have experienced, I know, at least 2 flooding events in the last 5 years.
Okay.
It may have been a third, but I know at least 2. They've applied for that grant, and in the last 4 years or so, they hadn't got a penny. So saying that going to Washington, D.C. is the answer for a requirement for city government is just fundamentally flawed.
Is this constitutional in your mind?
Well, they try to make it a city ordinance, and if, city ordinance is a city law. So, very good question, if it's constitutional or not. I don't know that you can take a city requirement and enforce the federal government to pay for it. If that's out there, somebody would have to reveal it to me. I've never seen that before.
Let me turn over to the Charleston Police Department audit. Obviously, they're having listening sessions around the city. What more questions do you have about the audit for the Charleston Police Department in your mind?
Well, let me tell you, I went to the first listening session. Well, I shouldn't say the first. I guess it was the second listening session. It was just held on Tuesdays. As a matter of fact, I left City Council meeting a little early so I could be there. And the turnout and the participation was wonderful. Okay. And the format was really impressive. It's a company called CNA that was, and I must say this, that was selected under a very fair process. You may be familiar. There was a lot of consternation on City Council about getting this done. Right. And the first process that was put in place, it was put in place by Mayor Tecklenburg and his team, was very unfair. A firm was selected, and the former police chief, who I got along well, but the mayor had him over the process. So you're going to have the police chief overseeing the audit of his department. If you really want a true audit, you have to have independence and transparency. This process we have in place is a very good process, and what's so impressive about it is not only the firm, but our police chief is embracing that process. He's not fighting against that process. He wants to hear, Chief Reynolds wants to hear the complaints so we can be a better police department moving forward. It is not a process of trying to play gotcha. It is a process of, if we have any strategies as a police department that's unfair to one community versus another, we want to fix that. We take pride in our police department. We take pride in our police chief. So it was a struggle getting a fair process, to choose a firm that was fairly chosen with experience. So we took the better part of a year getting to this point, but thank God we're here, and the people are participating. And the listening session on Tuesday, I guess you may have had 60 or 70 or more people that turned out. You may not like this part, but the press wasn't allowed in the room. And you know what? No policemen were allowed.
I heard that.
And that was a good thing, so people can feel free about talking about some of the negative experience or maybe occurrences they had with our police department. And those things are eventually going to evolve into solutions. So I'm looking forward to that.
I know you say that the city takes pride in the police chief. I know Chief Reynolds has been on the job for 1 year, or almost 1 year.
Right.
How would you grade him right now as police chief?
I give him an A+. And the reason I say that, I like the way he's reaching out to all communities. He's a very good listener, and he digests information very well. I think the people of the men and women of our police force respect him. Not necessarily fear him. I think they respect him because of the type of quality individual that he is. So if you can remember going all the way back to Chief Greenberg, we've been fortunate to have good police chief. Charleston has gone from the early days of having a bully police force to now having a very professional police force. I believe it's in excess of 90% of our police men and women have a college degree or better. Okay. A little known fact, but during the interview process, there was one police chief that interviewed for the process from a city larger than ours and a police force larger than ours. He was boasting about having 25% of his men and women of his police force, where he currently is, having college degree or better. I'm glad we're in the 90 percentile plus.
You talk about obviously the process of trying to hire somebody. Obviously, the mayor's race is at stake right now. Obviously, you have Mayor Tecklenburg running for re-election.
That's right.
You have Mike Seekins potentially going to run in April. You have Gary White already, Harry Griffin, and not on city council right now, but you have obviously Will Freeman, who's in the running as well, and potentially Maurice Washington. I know there was at some point there was your name in the mix right there.
Right.
Obviously, I heard that you're not going to run.
Right.
But why city council members running for city council in your mind? Well, running for mayor in your mind.
Well, I think you have to go and look back. Number one, the job of mayor of the city of Charleston is a coveted position. But there's no such thing as one or two people only in this city that can do that job. I can probably think of 30 people that have the capability and talents of doing that job that reside in the city.
Okay.
And you remember, those people with those talents and skill sets, it's not like they're sitting around twiddling their thumbs. They have very interesting careers and businesses that they're about and being a part of their lives and the community. So this thing about, if we don't have this person, will we survive? The sun's going to rise the next day, okay? I supported Mayor Tecklenburg when he ran. I endorsed him. I spoke to other people about him. I thought he was a very nice person. He is a very nice person. But I've had the chance now over the last 3 years to see him manage. And very nice person, very ineffective manager. So I think in part, the people who have worked with him the closest have seen that, realizing this city deserves better. So I think that's why you see, we have 12 council people, and potentially 25% of council is running for the mayoral seat. You've already named 3.
Sure.
Councilman Griffin, who I like a lot. Councilman Seekins, he's my desk mate, if you will. I sit right next to him. Because Councilman Gary White is a person that has a high financial acumen and has a lot of experience around the council table. So Charleston will be in good hands, okay? But what does that say when there are 13 stakeholders in this city, believe it or not, that make decisions on which direction the city's headed in. And out those, I'm counting the mayor, sure, one of those, 13 votes, obviously. Right. Out of the 12 people he has a chance to work with, 25% says, I can do better.
What is the relationship between Mayor Tecklenburg and city council in your mind?
I think, again, as I said, in a conversational standpoint, I think he's a friendly guy, but there's that but out there. When it comes, there's just several bad ideas financially that city council, from its position of overseeing the mayor, we work hard to correct, and it takes a lot of effort to correct a mayor that has we have a strong mayor form of government, and when the city council has to say, no, that's not in the best interest of the citizens of Charleston. And I'll give you a couple examples.
Okay.
About a year or so ago, you might remember the low line.
Right. Oh, yeah.
The mayor was a strong advocate of acquiring the low line. And let me tell you, city council was too. The differential was price. The mayor was in favor of a price of more than $12 million. Taxpayers don't. City council thought better. The majority, I should say, of city council thought better. Remember, the city of Charleston has acquired abandoned railroad bed in the past. I mean, you've had the Greenway, which was an abandoned railroad bed, which is a nice linear park, and you have the Greenway, which is a very nice linear park. So this was something that we've done before, but this mayor thought $12 million was a good price, and actually, I think it's $12.5 million. He actually proposed that to us, and tremendous pushback from the majority of city council. Long story short, we ended up paying 2.4 million.
Okay.
So financially, city council was right, the mayor was wrong, the taxpayers got a better transaction than had we followed that leadership. So recently on city council, there was a proposal by the mayor to council at the first meeting in March to that the USGA championship is coming, PGA championship is coming, and obviously parking would be a need. And I want to make this clear: our city approached them about using the first 9 holes, basically, fairways of our municipal golf course. Remember that this golf course belongs to the people, okay? To park on. Prior to that, when we were going through our budget preparations, and we just found this out, we meeting council, and I was part of that budget ad hoc committee, only found out that we purposely budgeted receiving less than $50,000 in income that we would receive for the 10 days that they wanted to use it. So, in other words, if they didn't park there, the city would receive $50,000 in fees from people playing golf on the course. By using it as a parking lot, where tour buses, sports utility cars, trucks, cars, parking on a surface that is not designed for that. It's not designed to be a parking lot. The city had negotiated a $5,000 fee, even though it was going to cost the city $50,000.
Okay.
Well, years ago, I had the pleasure of serving on something called the Economic Coordinating Council for the city, for the state of South Carolina. It was chaired by the Secretary of State, who at that time was Mr. Charlie Wayne. When the state would recruit industry in, for example, expansion of Michelin Tire, it was a $1 billion expansion, and they were shopping that literally around the globe, not just the United States. Before the state would give incentives to try and incentivize that expansion, tax credits, etc., there was something called a but-for criteria. If we didn't give these incentives, would we not get that investment? Or we would not get that investment into the state, thereby creating the jobs, economic expansion. Well, obviously those incentives were awarded. That expansion took place of the Michelin plant, and for more than a decade now, families have been earning incomes there.
Okay.
This didn't fit, in my opinion and others, the but-for criteria. Number one, the mayor and his team knew about it for months and months. City council finds out about it less than 2 months before the tournament. It was just a bad decision for the city. It was a bad decision for the players who more rounds of golf are played on the municipal golf course than any other golf course in the Low Country. Our citizens use that golf course. We are going out for examples like that, that if we keep doing business like that, that AAA credit rating gift that I told you that Mayor Riley left a lot of gifts to this city, but one of the best ones that and there have been many good ones, but one of the very best was that AAA credit rating. If we keep spending money like that, and if we keep managing the city where the mayor proposes to lease a golf course for $5,000, and the city is going to knowingly lose $50,000 in revenue, that type display, bond rating agencies look at that. They look at this. They look at our, not just us, but I mean other cities as well. How do you manage? If you don't manage well, you will lose your credit rating. And that's the type, it takes a lot of effort to fight back bad ideas. Recently, at that same meeting with the golf course, we voted on our budget in December of 2018.
Right.
We worked on that budget 4 or 5 months. the first meeting in March, he proposes hiring a judge that we didn't budget for, and a judge that has no experience in the criminal court. I shouldn't say a judge, he wanted to hire a person to be a judge who didn't have experience to sit on our municipal court, which is a criminal court, didn't have any experience. Well, when you set a budget, and the first thing you do is you want to go to a reserve to create a position that wasn't even asked for as being a need during the budget process, then you're not adhering to the budget that you advertise to the people and to the rating agencies and to the public that we're going to follow this budget. A compilation of those type things, $12 million for a railway versus $2.5 million. Reducing your revenue stream by $50,000, and if the damages to the golf course to repair it lasted 2 months, that would have cost another $300,000. Not adhering to your budget and creating positions that wasn't even asked for. In other words, when you put together a budget, you speak to the department heads and say, what are some of your needs for next year? That wasn't identified as a need. A compilation of those type bad strategies, and that's just 3 of them. It's going to be hard to hold our AAA credit rating. So if people doesn't know that, we have 130,000+ citizens in the city of Charleston. They don't know that. But the 12 people around the table, the 12 people in executive sessions, the people who work on the budget, they know that. And then to top it off, we have an 18%, almost a 20% turnover ratio where people are leaving the city. Some of our most valuable employees are leaving. Turnover costs money. That means if you're one of our trusted employees, you've got that good 15-year experience, you know your job, you like your job, and you leave, we have to hire somebody else. And then we have to retrain that person to do what you did expertly. Retraining costs. The lack of your institutional knowledge costs, because that means the job's not being done efficiently. So if we keep headed down this road, yes, people are going to ask, why did you let that happen? And part of our job, in part, is to be watchmen on the wall.
Let me turn to the Lewis Waring Senior Center.
Okay.
Obviously, your father is a leader and a respected person in this community. What do you want seniors in West Ashley to know about Lewis Waring?
Well, let me say this. You're very kind to say those about my father, and you're right. I'm very proud, and we are very proud of my father. And in part, my civic service is because of my dad. My dad told us we always need to give back. So volunteering is part of that. But it was just, I have to go back all the way to the 2015 council, with Mayor Rowley and the members of council at that time who sought to name that facility after our dad, and he was a part of it. He was there when they voted to name it. And so it was a very good gift, and one of the best gifts is one little known fact is, that when they would not work at that site on Sundays, so the construction site was closed, no trespassing. So Chief Reynolds, I'm admitting to a crime right now. I would bring my dad up on Sundays, not every Sunday, but just to watch the foundation come up, the building rise up out of the ground, and we'd walk around the building and have some of the best conversations, and that's a gift that really is priceless. And we figured, if they arrested us for trespassing, we'd probably get out of it, so we would do it. But the way the people turned out, and I know how happy my father was, just overjoyed with all the people that turned out and wishing him well, but more importantly, how beautiful that facility is. It really is beautiful. Now, you're too young. You can't use it. So we're going to exclude you from doing it.
I'm 34.
You have to be at least 50 years old to do it. So age has its privileges. And I know the people of West Ashley have been waiting on it. But I do believe they feel like it's been definitely worth the wait because the response has been overwhelming. So that is actually the first project in a big way that's rolled off towards West Ashley revitalization, and that's one of the last projects that was started by mayoral, and now the ribbon cutting has been put on it. But very good work from the contractor, from the our capital projects people. Obviously, Mayor Tecklenburg participated in that, and this council participated in that in a large way. So very proud of him. Yeah, he's still floating on that one. So we thank the community and anybody had a role in a part of that, because normally that type of recognition comes after someone dies. He got to see it live and in color. So we'll be forever thankful for that.
That's so amazing. I just want to use the treadmill. Can I?
No. You got to be 50 years old or more. And we're going to check your card. We're going to check your card.
Well, that's really good to hear.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that was thank you for bringing that up, because I would not have mentioned that. That's, we take pride in that.
Oh, yes.
And you know what? St. Francis,
Oh,
St. Francis Hospital was such a wonderful corporate partner in that.
Yeah.
Most people probably don't know this, but the land was made available at no cost to the city. Okay, and if you've been over there, I know you have. It's built in like a retreat, so you almost have to know where it is to find it. And then there are going to be nice walking trails eventually to tie in with some of the walking trails that Roper St. Francis have on St. Francis Hospital's campus. So they contributed towards the capital projects, and Dinos Leolios and his team, and Danny Forsberg on the engineering side. It was just a wonderful coming together of local people putting their best foot forward.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Keith Waring, thank you so much for your time. That's so huge.
Well, I'm humbled by it. Very humbled by it. Very humbled by our community.
Yes, yeah. And I enjoyed this interview as well.
I did too. Always getting together with you. Somebody got to turn that camera around and interview you.
Oh, yeah. Anytime. I'm available. Yeah.
Well, we'll do it.
Oh, great.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Man.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Yeah, you too.
All right.